We're talking about a move that many people dream of mastering, the backflip. But it's not the physical skill that's the hardest part. It's the mental barrier that holds us back. If fear has been stopping you from attempting the backflip or other high-skill movements, this episode is for you. We'll break down different ways to approach the skill, share tips for overcoming fear, and give you a practical path to building confidence. We'll be talking about my experience as a gymnastics coach and parkour coach for almost 8 years to tackle those mental blocks and start flipping.
Welcome to Also Ninja Fitness, where we share our love for sports such as Ninja Warrior, Parkour, and Gymnastics to help you achieve the power, skills, and freedom of movement of the functional fitness athlete you are meant to be.
Fear is the number one reason people hesitate to learn the backflip. It's a natural response. Your body is hardwired to protect you from injury. They're your brain's way of trying to keep you safe, but they can be managed with the right approach. In the backflip, most of the time is a lack of understanding of the move or a lack of trust in yourself. By gradually introducing yourself to the movement, having easier progressions, and practicing in a safe environment, you teach your brain that it's okay to flip, reducing the intensity of the fear over time. The more you expose yourself to the movement, the more comfortable you'll become. Start with small, safe steps, getting used to jumping, practicing backward rolls, or using a foam pit. I want to emphasize the safe part, not just pitching it and seeing what happens. Each time you practice, you're conditioning your brain to understand the backflip. It's okay to take your time. It took me 1 year to get it on my own outside, and not once did I get injured. I remember the first time I attempted a backflip. It was terrifying. I spent weeks visualizing it, but every time I tried, I couldn't push myself to do it. But once I started breaking it down into smaller steps and practicing in safer environments, I began to trust myself more. That trust made all the difference. I was doing it from height into a foam pit and eventually on the ground outside. If you are scared of a thing, confidence and conquering fear is just a skill you can learn as easily as learning how to do a push-up. We've already talked about exposing yourself to what you're afraid of. Safely practice that skill as closely as possible to the real thing so your brain can understand what it feels like and learn that it's not as dangerous as it seems. For example, with a front flip, start with front rolls from an elevated surface. This helps slow the movement down, allowing you to feel the rotation in a controlled way before progressing. There are easy fears you have in everyday life that help you gain the same skills or conquering a fear of a backflip. I used to be deathly afraid of small boats, worrying they would flip and sink. Then I learned how to sail and even competed in a sailing race. Now I love it. The same process applies to bodyweight skills, whether it's a fear of heights when training parkour or a fear of failing a move. Learning to face and work through fears in day-to-day life will carry over to your training. Overthinking can be your friend. Run through possible scenarios in your head. What could go wrong and what would you do if it did? Control what you can control. Could you fall? Could you lose balance? Ask yourself if these things have ever happened before in similar situations. And if so, how did you handle them? If you're not confident in the outcome, that's okay. Step back to where you feel more comfortable and rebuild from there. Fear isn't a sign of weakness, it's an indicator of where you need to focus your training. By practicing mental rehearsals and staying within your comfort zone when necessary, you can train your mind to trust your body, and progress will follow. I'll never forget the moment one of my athletes, who had been struggling with confidence, finally nailed her first backflip. We spent weeks practicing drills and breaking down the movement until it became second nature. When she finally committed to the full flip, it was at an amazing level of mastery. But I've been talking about the backflip. If you want to learn it, here's a quick tutorial. The iconic backflip is also one that most people mess up early due to fear or how they practice the technique. It is better to take longer to be safe and learn it properly than to fix bad habits later. Two very common mistakes happen, and fixing one sometimes affects the other. Insufficient jump height. It's about finding the peak of your jump and having your hips completely open to snap back for the tuck. The backflip should look similar to if you did the highest jump possible and move one step back from where you jump. Going too far. When first learning, people get scared of hitting the thing they are jumping from, so they throw their heads backwards and go very far. This will cause many more problems. To fix this, you should be looking in front of you the whole time you are jumping up and aiming for your head and arms to be hit up as if you are going a headbutt to the sky and looking for a jumping high five. Progressions. Back roll from height. This helps understand the rotation. Start on a slightly elevated platform and roll backwards into a standing position. Macaco. This move helps you get comfortable going over your head. It's like a one-handed back handspring that teaches you the dynamics of flipping. Back handspring. If you did not have an object, you would go a back handspring and gradually attempt to perform it without using your hands. This teaches back technique but gets you over your head. This was a really quick and dirty tutorial, as there are different ways to learn it, depending on what you have available and where you are starting. For many of our online athletes, we learn to master controlling our bodies first, with animal movements and basics before going into flips. There's nothing more satisfying than seeing all the pieces come together. I've watched so many athletes go from hesitant to confident by following this blueprint, and every time, it's a reminder of how powerful consistent practice is. I want to focus more on the mental part of fear training. You can work through fear just like a parkour athlete. In parkour, athletes are constantly facing fear, whether it's jumping between rooftops, vaulting over obstacles, or doing flips. The difference is that parkour athletes don't shy away from fear. They train through it. The key is to build a confidence in small, manageable steps, just like we discussed with the backflip. Parkour athletes start with low-risk movements before moving to more dangerous ones. In parkour, the goal is to condition your brain to respond calmly in situations that would typically trigger fear. This is done through repetitive practice in a controlled environment. For example, an athlete might practice jumping from one low wall to another over and over again until the movement feels natural. Over time, they increase the height of the walls, but the distance stays the same, conditioning their mind and body to handle the greater risk. Parkour athletes also learn to embrace failure as part of the process. They know that not every jump or vault will be perfect, but each attempt is a step closer to mastering the movement. That is why an athlete practices falling almost more often than any other skill. I've trained with parkour athletes who seem fearless, but the truth is they've just conditioned themselves to manage their fear. It wasn't something they were born with. It was developed through consistent practice and facing challenges head on. This mindset has helped me in my training, and it's a powerful tool for tackling any mental block. You will fail. That is a fact that I can guarantee. Learning a backflip or any high-skill movement is rarely a smooth process. There will be setbacks, days when you don't land the flip, or when fear takes over and you hesitate. These moments are frustrating, but they're also a natural part of the learning process. The key is not to let setbacks discourage you or cause you to give up. Every failure is a learning opportunity, and each time you get back up, you're one step closer to success. One of the best ways to stay motivated through setbacks is to track your progress. Keep a journal or take videos of your practice sessions so you can see how far you've come. Even if you don't land the flip perfectly, there may be other signs of progress, like getting more height in your jump or feeling more comfortable with the rotation. Celebrating these small wins can keep you motivated, even when the final goal still seems out of reach. It's also important to have a support system. Whether it's a coach, training partner, or community of fellow athletes, having someone to encourage you and provide feedback can make all the difference. I've had my fair share of setbacks in learning new skills, and I know how easy it is to feel defeated. Like I said, it took one whole year to get to do a backflip on my own on the floor. Imagine working towards something for 365 days and not getting it yet, but I got it. If you can see it in your mind, you can achieve it with your body. Visualization is one of the most powerful tools athletes use to overcome fear and sharpen their skills. By mentally rehearsing a movement, you can prepare your brain and body for success before even attempting it physically. This method works especially well with skills like the backflip, where fear plays a huge role. Sit down, close your eyes, and imagine yourself performing the perfect backflip. Focus on each detail, how your body moves, how it feels to jump, tuck, and land safely. Studies show that mental rehearsal activates the same neural pathways as actual practice, meaning you're still training even when you're not physically moving. Pairing visualization with practice helps solidify your muscle memory, making complex movements like the backflip feel more natural and less intimidating. If you feel stuck or too scared to try the full movement, mental rehearsal is a great way to break through that barrier. Try spending a few minutes each day visualizing yourself successfully performing the backflip or your goal, especially if fear is holding you back. The more you do this, the more confident you will become when it's time to attempt the real thing. This is the number one technique that I used and taught my athletes in Ninja Warrior competitions. When we went to do the obstacle course, it felt as if we had already done it hundreds of times and were mentally and physically prepared. Mastering a skill like the backflip is a journey of patience, confidence, and calculated practice. Let's take a quick look back at what we've covered so far. We tackled the number one obstacle, fear. Understanding the mental blocks that hold you back is the first step toward overcoming them. Fear can be managed by gradually exposing yourself to the skill in a safe environment, so your brain learns it's not as dangerous as it feels. Then we focused on confidence-building drills. Facing fears in both life and training helps strengthen that trust. From working through small, day-to-day fears, such as boats, to mastering a skill at height, these are experiences that teach your mind how to overcome mental barriers. We also walked through a practical blueprint for the backflip, progressions like back rolls, macacos, and back handsprings. We explored the importance of overcoming setbacks and staying motivated, and how using mental rehearsals and breaking skills down into manageable steps helps you visualize and plan your progress. By doing this, you give yourself a clear path forward and minimize the overwhelming feeling of facing the entire skill at once. Learning a backflip is as much about mental strength as it is about physical skill. By understanding your fear, taking small steps, and celebrating your progress along the way, you'll build the confidence to flip with ease. If you're ready to tackle mental blocks and want a program that helps you start working towards flips, check out our free program at Awesome Ninja Fitness. Keep conquering your fears and stay awesome.